What's up? What's up? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Hawks Room podcast, hosted by yours truly, David Lee, aka D Lee 43. And in the last series of this sort of capsules about the NBA draft, we're going to be focusing on the guards. And this is a topic where I've sort of wavered throughout the draft. I'm not the biggest fan of the guards in this class, and so I think it's important to talk through different types of options, different types of guards in this draft, because from my personal perspective, I only have 5 or 6 guards in the first round, if not less than that. And so I think it'd be a great time to bring on my guy Abdel, also known as Taco Takes. My guy, how you doing today?
Good, man. Good. You got a game 7 later today and you get to talk draft, How can be better, man? So that'd
Oh,
be good.
for sure. So I wanted to really just start, so for those who don't know, Abdel is a Raptors fan. And the Hawks, the Raptors are kind of like doing this very much so like the multiple ball handlers trend. They got a bunch of wings. They don't necessarily have a true point guard. IQ is a combo. Jamal Shed's a combo. And because of that, like one big thing that I was looking at when I was doing like y'all's draft guide, I was kind of floating the idea of taking like a primary ball handler for them because, or at least someone who could like initiate and organize the offense, because I don't necessarily feel like that's IQ's best strength, even though he did have probably his best playmaking season. But I'll share this graphic really quick. But when I look at some of the needs of this team, I mean, sorry about that. But like the on-ball creation is definitely a area of improvement, right? Like you got they ran the least on-ball actions in the entire NBA. Quickly was on the ball most out of anyone, but his best position throughout his entire career has kind of been a shooting guard, and sort of attacking closeouts and not necessarily being the lead initiator. And then getting to the free throw line has also been something that they haven't been able to do consistently. And so, like with that in mind, what are your general thoughts about adding a point guard to a very versatile core like Toronto? Like just a general like sizing down for the sake of having that initiator or that creator of the backcourt.
Yeah, I think there's two aspects to it. There's because there's the way Toronto's constructed, the multiple ball handlers is kind of different with like now we got Ingram as well. But Darko's offense as well, you have to ask the question is how much does he value a point guard who's going to dribble a lot, right, with the ball in his hands? Like, does he really want that archetype in his offense, or is he like, okay, available to get that type of player and tweak his offense or philosophy if needed, right? Because the way they play is very much Jakob up top, right? Like handing off, running delay, and then everybody making moves there. So the point guard, at the very least, has to be good in spot-up situations and off the ball, I think. Obviously, like you would sacrifice that if you had like a real deal on-ball creator prospect, right, that you could draft and bring in. And then the second part is how many of those prospects are available at 9, right? Like, are you really gonna get that level of player in the draft at 9, or are you gonna be better off trying to find that in like trades or free agency, right? So like that's the kind of two things you have to balance. The only guy I think would fit that mold is Fears at 9, the on-ball creator type. Everyone else mostly has real limitations on the ball, and then Fears himself, he didn't really do good in spot-up situations in Oklahoma too, right? So then it's like you're drafting a player who has potential as an on-ball creator, but no guarantee, and he might really struggle in Darko's offense in the first few years, right? So that's why personally I would lean towards just drafting the best prospect in general. The guard that would actually fit really well, I think, offensively, the way Darko wants to play is Jase at 9. Obviously, he's like very small, and like there's other scenarios to that. But yeah, it's kind of like, okay, Darko's offense, does he really want a ball dominant guard, even though like roster-wise we don't have that? And can you find that at 9 in the draft, right? So those are kind of two things I'm thinking. So that's what
I think if anyone, like if you were going to be able to take like the ideal guard prospect, it'd be Dylan Harper, right? And that's not to say he doesn't have holes in his game, but there's a reason he's
the lottery, man.
Right. There's a reason he's going, top 3, if not top 2. And I think that if the thing about Jase too, like I was shocked initially with the height, and there are very few guys who are 6 foot that have become successful NBA players have been super impactful. Then you look at the wingspan though, and his wingspan's 5 inches longer than his height. It's like, okay, Yeah, he may
Yeah.
be off the ball, but he may be closer to like a 6'2" off the ball as opposed to like a 6'3", and that's a little bit more
Yeah.
tenable. The Hawks brought in a Jase Richardson for a workout, and I'm
Mhm.
curious on like your thoughts about him for the Hawks, but also your thoughts about him in general.
Yeah, so I released a video on this yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
So basically to encapsulate his thoughts, he's actually a really hard evaluation, I found, because the size you described, that's like the central question. It really dictates everything else. Him as a prospect, like everything he does or everything comes back to like, okay, at his size, what does this matter, or like, is it gonna help him, right? Um,
Right.
so what I essentially think is if you don't believe in his potential to be a point guard, just like in a traditional lineup, put him at point guard with no other special like a jumbo handling four, then if you believe in that potential, then his value is a lot more higher, and I feel like the upside is a lot more higher because he's already really like NBA ready to come in day one as a play finisher and connector and be like really good and even grow more in the area, right? It's just that at 6'1", even though it's a 6'6" wingspan, the 6'1.5" with a 6'6" wingspan, like let's say he doesn't reach that threshold as a point guard, then all of a sudden you're talking about like a 6'1.5", 6'2" shooting guard. And
Yeah.
like where do you see like the only guys I've seen that size that can play that position or like Fred VanVleet, Kyle Lowry when they used to play together, but like those guys are just like like wide, right? So this Jace is still like a bit smaller, even like width-wise. So
Yeah.
that's where his floor really takes a hit if you don't believe that he can be a point guard. But if you do, and like the way I believe it is like the way you described quickly, like the way he became
Mhm.
a point guard, he just hit the enough threshold to play that position, even though he's not a natural passer or creator. I think that's achievable for Jace. And if he hits that, then a lot of the other aspects that quickly doesn't have, like finishing at the rim, he's really good in the mid-range, floaters. He's always been efficient in that area. He can hit spot-up threes. His pull-up three-point shot still is a work in progress, but that's pretty much the only shooting area that he's not as good at. Everything else, he's like extremely efficient in, right? So then you have a player that's like can play point guard, finish at the rim, off ball, and he can play off ball with other creators as well. Then he becomes a much more complete player. Excuse me. Um, so that's kind of what I think. Like the central question is, can he actually be a point guard for me?
Mhm.
And I believe that more than other people. But when I see him at like 15, 16 to like 25 on people's boards, they probably don't believe that, right? And that makes sense. Like, oh, I don't think he's gonna be a point guard. Then you just have an undersized two. Why are you gonna put an undersized two or undersized score like in the lottery, right? Or in the top half of the lottery. So it doesn't make sense. So, but I still believe in his point guard potential. So that's why I have him like probably I draft him from like 8 to 14, that range,
Mhm.
right? So yeah, that's kind of the range I have in mind for him. So that's kind of my thoughts for Atlanta. If Trey's still there, he could still play behind Trey, or even like you can steal minutes them sharing the floor. Um, like if he was just a bit bigger, he'd be perfect, man. Like if he was just 6'4", like
Yeah.
VJ size, maybe slightly like I'd have him probably like top 5 easy, right? But then now I have him like probably 5 to 10 to 14. So in Atlanta, the fit with beside Trey if he's there is kind of weird. But with Jalen Johnson specifically, I feel like he's a perfect type of player. Like they really would mesh off each other really well. And then you have Zachary Richardson as well there. So I like that fit. It's just that it's like if Trey's gonna be there, then it's gonna be hard to get them on the floor at the same time, right?
Yeah.
Then he'd probably be playing backup point guard, right? So then in that scenario, I think that'd be pretty good, yeah. So at like 14, you guys have
We have 13.
13.
Mhm.
Yeah, I definitely take a look at Jace there. So
And I think one of your points, you talked about a jumbo creator. And if you have that big guy in the backcourt already, then he makes sense. And that's
yeah,
where I feel like for example, you look at OKC, they've got Casey Wallace next to Shea. He's a smaller two guard. Like in most teams, he'd have to be a
exactly.
point
Yeah,
guard. That makes sense. The Hawks don't necessarily have
yeah,
that luxury. You know what I mean? Like because our primary
yeah,
creator is so small, I don't really know if you can, as good as Jace is, as efficient as he is, as adept as he was like attacking closeouts. I don't know if I see the real like I don't know, like a ton of on ball usage, but there are moments where you see him create
Yeah,
for himself, but it's typically out of a handoff. It's not like I'm trying to remember what game it
100%.
was. Oh yeah, when they were playing Auburn and like Dylan Cardwell would switch on them, who again is a really good defender, like one of the best defenders in the class. There wasn't
Yeah,
much that Jase could do against him, and that's
yeah,
it's so much about the NBA's mismatch hunting. And I don't think he has. Well, I think his handle is definitely top 3 in the class, and his touch is really great for his size. I don't know if he has enough outlier traits to really like demand that on ball usage. But that's why I think he intrigues me so much for you guys. But at this point,
yeah,
though, I think if y'all end up trading out or if you don't take him, he's probably going 10 to Phoenix, is what I would think. But
yeah. Oh, yeah,
because
Phoenix
I
are
was
that
also
tempting,
thinking
man.
like if we talk about the other guards in the class, I feel like I don't really feel really good about most of them. Like I'm looking at my board, I've got the highest guard I have is Dylan Harper, of course, but then outside of that, I got Fears at 12, and then the rest of the guards like in the later first round. And I think if the Hawks are going to look at a guard again, they're going to look at size, not necessarily like who's the like it has to be more than just best player available for us because of that size constraint.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious on how you feel about Kasparas because he's
Mm-hmm.
someone that honestly disappointed me in the second half of the season.
Yeah.
But I do think he's not without his context either. Like he had
Mm-hmm.
a forearm injury that had some issues with like his shooting touch. And
Mm-hmm.
what really concerns me about him is like he constantly turned the ball over and over and over.
Yes.
It was before the injury, after the injury. He's another guy that I don't feel like has a great first step or a super tight handle, but
Yeah.
he's super crafty. When I watched him
Yeah.
play in the ANGT or in some of the Euro Cup stuff, I came away a little bit more enticed. I think the size is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing. Like, I mean, I think Jace is a better player, but for the Hawks, like I wouldn't be
Yeah.
super happy with Kasparas, but I could say, okay, this is a big guard who can attack closeouts, run the offense. What are your thoughts on him in general?
Yeah. He's interesting because yeah, when I watched him last year in the Adidas Next Generation tournament,
Mm-hmm.
I was pretty interested, but I always came away like he yeah, his first step isn't really that good. He's not really doesn't have much vertical pop, right? So how is he gonna finish at the rim against NBA contests, right? And surprisingly, that's when I came back like a few weeks ago because I was looking at other guards. He shot like 60 something, 62, 63-ish, or maybe 64% at the rim, or like on
Mm-hmm.
layups, which was surprising to me. But when I took a look at the tape, like like you mentioned, like everything about his game it has to do with craft. Like every time he drives, right, he either like against slower defenders can actually get by them and finish, but most of the time he can't really get by them. But then he pivots, stops, turns, and
Mm-hmm.
almost waits for a defender to make a mistake and either get fouled because he had a high free throw rate or finish at the rim with like a nice touch shot. So it's not really he's driving, a defender's coming over at the rim and he finishes around them. He either gathers or like contests at the rim. He kind of stops, waits for people to make a mistake and then throws up a layup, right? And it worked for him in this level, but obviously you're concerned like those gaps are going to be very small in the NBA next level. And if your
Yep.
finishing game is like predicated upon people making mistakes rather than forcing mistakes, right? Then like it's harder to like scale up, right? At that next level. But it just really shows you how important size is because like the fact that he's like 6'5" ish, like a legit two guard size, then he has more like things to fall back on. Is like okay, maybe in the next level you're not running as much pick and roll, maybe
Yep.
you're just hitting catch and shoot threes. You're not taking these crazy between the legs step back threes that you're forced to, right?
Mm-hmm.
In Illinois, because he took a lot of those, and they're
Yep.
actually they like the numbers aren't crazy, but considering his shot diet and difficulty, I still believe him as a pretty good shooter. So then at that next level, you have like a two guard size who could potentially, I think he only hit like 34, 35% catch and shoot threes, but if he can hit decent catch and shoot threes, then attack closeouts, use his passing from there, which will limit the amount of turnovers, hopefully. Then you have a more functional player in your head. You're like, oh, okay, this is a guy who can contribute. But as a point guard, like running the show, I kind of have given up all hope because these turnover numbers are bad. It's like you're always like, okay, it's gonna go down this year. It's gonna go down because you know that saying like, oh, some good turnovers are good turnovers and so on.
Yep.
Like This guy just and his handle. Some of it were handle related too. His handle is kind of loose, right?
Mhm.
So I think I'm starting to think of him more as like a two, a connective two guard. Then at that size, I think it's more appealing. So yeah, if you were to take him at four, but yeah, like you said, I think Jace is just better at basketball. He's just 6'1", right? So a lot of these guys, like yeah, size is very important in NBA. So he would be someone I would take. I'd be like, okay. I wouldn't be like, oh, I'm so excited. I'd be like,
Yeah.
okay, I could see him being contributor, right? So one of the things that came to my head, I used to call him a lot. He's basically like Lithuanian Grievous Vasquez. I used to call him that because Vasquez, especially in the Raptors, he loved taking just like crazy threes, right? And he's
Mhm.
like a 6'6" point guard as well. But he has obviously athletic limitations. So this kind of reminds me of him. So he's not like, oh man, this guy's so exciting, but he's definitely has something there. I think he can wiggle his way to being a potential starter if everything rolls right, you know? So yeah, I would be like, okay, cool. It's like my team drafted him. So
Yeah, I have Grievous Vasquez down as one of his comparisons too, because I think it's
yeah,
like Malcolm Brogdon, like guys like that, like bigger guards who aren't, they're not physically dominant, they're not super fast, but like they just somehow make a way to to have impact. And I don't know, I wouldn't want him running my offense too. Like I agree with that, and I also don't feel like the playmaking was special enough for me to excuse those turnovers either. Like a lot of it was
yeah,
like his handle was loose, like he's trying to break someone down and loses the ball, or he drives into a crowd and gets it taken away from him. And so I do kind of worry about his processing ability or like his decision making. But if it
yeah,
is a scaled down role, then I can understand it. And again, if you buy some of the earlier part of the season where he was hitting those step back threes and creating a lot of space, then
yeah,
it's much more appealing. But in terms of like those guards, I don't think he's as big of a swing as this guy. But like Jaeger Demont is someone that I have no interest in. I'm just curious if you have any sort of positive thoughts about him, because I understand the
yeah.
appeal, but I worry about his
Yeah.
ability to get to his spots, like have any sort of scoring gravity. Defensively, he wasn't engaged enough for me, and he's big, but like that's virtually it. Like he doesn't do much else.
Yeah, it's legit just size. Because if he was 6'4", 6'5", I don't, he wouldn't be a prospect in a lot of people's eyes, right? He'd just be
Yeah.
some guard playing at BYU, right? Yeah, like you said, he's just very, yeah, especially early on in the year when he's playing and he had like a good stretch of games against lower level competition. It was like, oh wow, this guy's like this big, and his passing is actually very impressive, right? Some of the stuff he pulls off. It's just that when he's in the right position to make the pass or like finish the play, like okay, he looks good, but when the ball in his hands, or like how does he create those opportunities more? Because when the ball is in his hands, he just gets cut off easy, like so much times. Like he can't drive by anybody. And then his handle, obviously, like for a 6'8" guy, it's like okay, but for like if he wants to be actually a guard, it's like easy the guys pressure him and he gets uncomfortable. So it's like yeah, there's just so much red flags, and he's never been a good shooter, right? And that like it continued even though he started well and throughout the year. So like, how do you use a player who's like has decent size, like nothing crazy defensively? I think he could like be good, obviously due to his size. Who wants to run pick and roll and make reads, but outside that, like there's not much there because he's not going to have much spot up gravity as a shooter, meaning
Mhm.
like he's going to be driving into shorter closeouts, meaning his handle will probably be like like hurt more, right? Guys will be able to strip him like just like, based off the handle, and it's just like how do you like what's the sell for him? Like the when you put all the skills together, they don't really complement and flow well to like an overall like functional skill set. It's kind of like, oh wow, really special passer at this size. He can run pick and roll, and then like that's pretty. And he's like 6'8", 6'9". Like
Yeah.
that's pretty much it, right? Whereas these other guys have skills that work off other skills, and they build and they work together to be like, okay, this guy's actually can do this. It's just like in he can only like really run pick and roll at his size, and like if he's able like to get a good screen, then he can make reads. But that's pretty much it. Like when the ball gets swung to him, like defense is rotating, you can just close out short on him, and then he can like maybe drive that, but he's not like the athlete really. Or even like he got like Josh Giddey comparison. Josh Giddey on the ball, like he could cross over quickly and get by guys for his size. Low key was kind of underrated.
Mhm.
So he just doesn't have that leverage to get by the defense, to create a gap for a guy who wants to run pick and roll. That's his sell. So yeah, I'm not too interested in him either. So I think I'm on the same wavelength as you.
Oh, what's up? Just saw someone in the chat asking what's the topic. So we're talking Jerger Demont right now. We already touched on Jase and Kasparas, but if you all have any questions about Jase Richardson, the MSU guard, or Kasparas, we'll be happy to answer some of those. But I think Jerger, Sam Facini was, and I don't fault him at all. Like the first couple of games from Jerger, like by all means, like it was nowhere crazy to say that he was a top 5 pick. But then you look at the competition, right? And I saw like a pretty interesting sort of like statistical comparison of Jerger versus different competition. Like we know that the offensive stuff kind of like went downhill once he started seeing, better teams and bigger bodies. But Lucas Kaplan tweeted this out. In the 17 games that Demont played against top 50 NCAA teams, he posted 57 turnovers to 68 66 made baskets. He had 16 steals and blocks in the first 5 games of their season, which was all against low major teams. So he averaged 3.2 steals and blocks in those first 5 games. The next 28, he registered 34 combined at 1.2 per game. And the 20 Big 12 games he played at 6'8", he had just 3 offensive rebounds. And so it's hard to be like, okay, you're not a scorer, you're not aggressive, but you also don't contribute with your defensive playmaking, and you're not getting on the glass. It's like, why are you 6'8"?
Yeah.
And it's a really tough case. And I know that there's some prop going around because he, shot it well in workouts. And I do think if you feel like you can project him as a shooter, fine. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
because then that'll definitely change it, because now you're talking about someone who is like, I guess, a faster Danilo Gallinari, but like someone who can really, because to some extent, I feel like you cannot teach playmaking. Like there's a level of playmaking that isn't sort of like accessible. You know what I mean? And I think that he's at that special level where he can make those next level reads. He can manipulate defenders. He can do all those types of things. But I am way like, I have no interest in making that risk. That it's a very risky bet to me. Like I think he's closer to being like out of the league. Yeah, no, there's no way.
Yeah, like the later you get in the draft, you won't be able to pass up the size and passing combo. But in the lottery, yeah, like at 13, if the Hawks drafted him, yeah, I'd be very, very concerned, because it's just so much red flags, right? And obviously, like, it just shows you how important size is. We keep coming back to the size. You're like, man, he's this big and he can play make, right? And especially the early tape, like when even those lower level competitions, it was like still impressive the stuff he was doing. But yeah, like that's not someone I would want to take a swing in the lottery. Maybe late first, early second. I thought, okay, whatever. Let's just see like if we can get this guy. But yeah, if in the lottery, then yeah, I'd be very concerned. But yeah, maybe like some of these guys have like crazy outlier development, but I think for him it would be the shooting, right? Because really like him becoming a way more functional handler and be able to create separation, it's not really that easy to develop, right? It's a lot of it's physical traits, right? They're already set in. But like as a shooter, if he just all of a sudden becomes lights out shooter, then okay, cool. Then he could actually be like a useful like rotation player, right? And especially with the size, maybe he could be even more than that. But yeah, it's just too hard of a sell. I wouldn't take that risk, right?
Yeah.
In the lottery.
So Jorge is saying that Trey Johnson is the best guard in the class. Me personally, I feel like I'm higher on Trey than most folk. I think that he's a better passer than he gets credit for. I think my concerns with him is the same as everyone else. So like, he's super gifted with his frame, but the rim finishing leaves a lot to be desired. He didn't get there nearly enough. I think like less than 50% of his shots came at the rim. He shot below 55%. But I think you also have to watch him in different contexts. Like at U19, he was basically running point guard for that team, and he did an admirable job. And I think he's a good candidate for scaling down and looking a lot better. Like I think like as a movement shooter, and we talk about the closeout driving attacking, I would really, really love to see what that looks like for Philly. Like I think I love him for Philly. I don't know if I love him as much for Charlotte, but like I think he could play that role if they don't take VJ. He could be a very big offensive movement shooting weapon for them, and he can do more. He can put it on the floor. He can get to his thoughts. But do you have Harper as the best guard in the class, or where are you at with the guard?
Yeah, I've had him like since since I laid eyes on him like I already knew this guy was special. So for him, it was been Coop 1, Harper 2. It's been set in
Mhm.
stone from the beginning. I haven't seen much, even though there's stuff with Harper we'll probably get to later. Um, that's obviously like, yo, okay, you could be concerned about that, but for Trey Johnson, actually, like when you mentioned the passing, I'm gonna send you a link right now. So
Okay, bet.
the so back in like it was like last year, pre-college, I was looking at all some of the high school guys tape before the college season started. So I looked at Ace Bailey, Trey. I watched him at Link Academy, and a lot of the stuff I saw and like my feeling on him, and now hasn't really changed. Like
Mhm.
in terms of the guy that came to mind the most, not exactly like him, but a shot guy, it was Gary Trent Jr. In
Mhm.
terms of a guy who loves to shoot threes, but also loves to pull up in the mid range as well. He really never gets to the rim. I think it's a combination of his handle is actually pretty tight for his archetype, but he's just not very explosive. Like he can't really explode out his moves, and even when he gets a step, he's not really strong enough to keep his position. So he ends up
Mhm.
just fading away for a two. But even in like the top video clip, like he threw some nice passes, especially out of the pick and roll. He was like whipping passes off the pick and roll, and like obviously he's like really a monster pull-up shooter, right?
Mhm.
But it's just I don't foresee any situation where he's actually gonna improve on his ability to get to the rim or finish that significantly. I think he'll obviously make improvements. Yeah, like he'll be able to play off his shot and like get to the rim. But yeah, for a guard who can't really get to the rim, it really caps your ceiling. But for him, the combination of his passing with how crazy level he is as a shooter, I think it can mitigate those scenarios where
Yeah.
he still has pretty good potential where like another comp I saw that actually makes sense is like Tyler Hero, right?
Mhm.
The levels he reached as an on-ball creator, they're not exactly the same type of player or athlete, but that type of like Trey Johnson, like if everything clicks, you could see like a Tyler Hero type. And Tyler Hero like made the All-Star team, right? He's actually a legit good player, even though there's concerns like, okay, how scalable is he? Like if Trey Johnson can reach that level, is a top 5 pick in the draft for sure. You know, if you
Mhm.
believe he can reach those levels. So yeah, I think I'll have him around that range between 5 to 7, 5 to 8 when I make my board. Hopefully, I can make my board soon. But yeah, that's kind of I always been saying that, but I haven't done it. But that's kind of what I think about him. Like, can't really get to the rim, but really can play off his shot to get to spots. And he's an underrated passer, and his handle is actually pretty good. So yeah, if you're saying he's the best guard in the class, like Harper, like yeah, I just don't view him as the same tier as Harper. But for the rest of those guys, like then you get into the VJ, Con, Jase, and like Fears. Yeah, like if you have him the best of the rest of those guys, that's very. I feel like that's a normal take, to have. So yeah, so I like Trey as
Yeah.
a prospect.
I love that you watch the high school stuff too, because I think it's so important, to see these guys
Yeah,
in different teams. Like
100%.
and I can't quit him. Like I generally would be very like avoidant of a prospect like this, like someone who's very mid range heavy, not a positive defender. Like I do think shooting
Yeah.
guards to an extent are like becoming overvalued or like less valuable in today's NBA. But I think he has like I would say he's the best shooter in the class personally, and that's based on like the types of shots
Yeah,
he's taking,
100%.
the difficulty. Like Khan is a great shooter, 100%. So is Walter Clayton Jr. But
Hmm.
I think they're right there with him. But I just think Trey's a level above. And when you're that level
Yeah,
shooter, it's hard to fail. Like you said, like even Gary Trent Jr. is not a bad outcome. It's just not what he should be relative to his
yeah.
tools and what he's
It's a
displayed.
lower
Yeah,
mid to
like
lower end outcome.
I've thought about like Malik Monk is kind of where I feel
Hmm.
like he could get to pretty realistically.
Hmm.
We got a question about trading Trey Young. So I'm very anti this, and I think some of it is like my pessimism about this draft class for guards, but just in general, how hard it is to replace a generational talent. And
Hmm.
because Trey means more to us than any other team, I don't think we'll ever get fair value back for him. And I also think like let's
100%.
say if San Antonio called and they were let's say they didn't do the Fox trade and then they still end up getting the second pick. If they're like, hey, we'll do number 2, some of your other first, and whatever else salary filler to get Trey. I
Hmm.
have a lot of respect for Dylan Harper's game, but I still have questions about him that like I
Yeah,
would I
he's not
would
perfect.
I would take the call. I'm still probably not pulling the trigger. And I think that it's especially because you're finally getting to a point where you have a tenable roster around him. Like you mentioned, Jalen, Zach, Dyson. It's really hard to find a group of 3 younger guys who better complement Trey in terms of what they're trying to build. You know what I mean? And so I would hate for them to punt on that before they really get a chance. And I think that, but if they are going to want to trade him, it'd have to be this summer just because he only has 1 year left and he'll be unrestricted if he doesn't get an extension. But from everything I've heard, everything I understand, Trey's 100% on board with like what the front office is doing. I do think this season is a make or break season though for him particularly because I mean, I'm sure he's kind of tired of getting his name dragged through the mud because the Hawks aren't winning. Yeah. And it would not surprise me if we have another underwhelming season, which I wouldn't consider last season underwhelming. But let's say we end up, falling out of the play-in again. It would not surprise me if he wanted to take a change of scenery. And I wouldn't necessarily blame him because I don't think the organization has done a good enough job maximizing the situation around him. And I know that you've had to deal with, some franchise icons leaving like Pascal, OG, Fred. And a lot of times when teams drag out, like, for example, like they should have moved on from Siakam and OG a lot sooner.
100%.
Fred a lot sooner. And I think that the difference there is like Kawhi was such a catalyst and he was so key to that team. I don't blame Masai for trying to run it back that following season, right? Yeah. But that next season, that probably should have been when you pulled the trigger. And I think that the Hawks are in somewhat of a different scenario. Like you hear all these Trey Young combos, but I don't think they're actually trying to move him. I think they'll take calls. I don't think they'll do it this summer. I think they'll see what they can do with the draft, see what they can use with their TPE. They can take in some pretty large contracts, get some playable guys next to him. And I think the Hawks could quietly be like a surprising team in the East. Although I do think the rest of the East is probably going to try and swing moves. Like I was surprised Miami didn't try to get KD more earnestly because I mean Orlando started off the arms race, but I'd predict we see some more teams make some moves. But from your Raptors perspective, like looking at the Hawks, would you trade Trey?
Yeah, you're in that scenario now where we were in with Pascal in his last a year before his contract ended, where it's like, okay, timeline wise, it makes sense to trade this guy, right? Regarding that stuff, but like we're not going to get as much back, so should we really trade him? And then you have the emotional aspect, right? Attachment to him as well. The thing is, I'll say is the timeline stuff can be a bit overrated, to be honest, because the timeline you're committing to with the younger guys may not be the best one. Like there's no guarantee any of these young guys are that good. We kind of found out a bit. He's still gonna be a good player, but we found out a bit with Scotty Barnes. Like we moved off Pascal. We're like, oh, Scotty's gonna be the next star, carry us. And then once we put all the load on Scotty, the warts started to show, right, where he's not really fit to play this primary role, right? He's way better like as a connector and like a secondary piece. That's where he's really special. So like if let's say you trade Trey and like if you get Harper back or whatever, who's to say Harper, Jalen Johnson can really handle that type of load, right? And what if they turn out to be like mid-level prospects, and then you're stuck in a loop again where you can be like, okay, now I got to trade Jalen Johnson in a few years to go to this new timeline, right? So it's kind of tough unless you have a real deal prospect. You have no doubts is going to be a star on your roster, and then you have Trey Young there. Then it makes sense to trade him, get some assets back, and then reset the timeline around that player. But since the Hawks don't really have that, they have a lot of good guys who are complementary. Jalen Johnson's probably the closest. Then it's like, okay, why would you really trade Trey? So I would probably lead towards not trading him, right? Unless the offer is crazy. I just keep him because if he's happy to stay too, like that's a plus too. So he's not like trying to leave. So I'd probably be on that side, leading that direction. So
yeah. So we got a couple questions now. These are I'll sort of group these together. So Nolan Traore seems very boomer best off the passing. And then Federico says like how important is 3-point attempts and your evaluation. And I think this is related to Traore, but I think as a guard, you have to be able to shoot the ball and you have to have a pull-up three. And that's if you're ever going to ever get any on-ball reps. Like I talked about this with the OKC in Indiana. Shea not having a comfortable pull-up three completely neuters their offense because he's only comfortable stepping back. And it's a lot harder to step back out of pick and roll. So if you're trying to engage it big and drop, you have to drive it into him where you have the turnover issues or a turnover probability, and then you have to bring him back out, and then you have to set up the step back. And so because he isn't comfortable doing that, it causes a lot of problems with their offense. Halliburton is the same way. Halliburton is a much better step back shooter than a pull up shooter. He actually he barely, if ever, pulls up, and it usually if he does, it's in the mid range. And so not having a pull up three is a huge scoring limitation in today's NBA. But I think in general, like the types of threes. Are you getting them off of movement? Are they just spot ups? Are they off the dribble? Are they out of pick and roll? Are they out of handoffs? Like all those things are really, really important for me. It's why I feel like Walter Clayton Jr. is going to translate really well. It's why I think Trey Johnson is going to translate very well. It's why I think Khan's going to translate very well. And I had questions about someone like Rasheer Fleming. Shot it very well, but was very static. Carter Bryant started very well, but was static. Jase Richardson, he also was not great off the dribble, but he's really good on spot up. So it's like I am scared. I'm scared of spot up heavy shooters. So how do you feel about 3-point attempts? And then I'll pull up some Nolan tape while you talk about that.
I agree 100% with what you said. Yeah, it really depends on the type of three and also the type of player, right? If you have a player that's not really going to get on ball reps, then having more of a like static catch and shoot game is more tenable. But even then, it's still like the NBA is much more dynamic than that. You're really going to get opportunities to get like wide open threes with a guy running at you, and then you can make a decision. A lot of the time it's like in those like middle scenarios where you have a bit of space, you're like, do I pull, and there's a guy running at you, then you really got to put the ball on the floor and play off that. So I feel like the 3-point attempts, like it by itself, like you can't really just say, oh, this guy shoots well. You have to be like, okay, what type of shots do you take? Okay, when guys are running like him off the line, what does he do? What's the speed of his jumper, the versatility? Can he get it off going left, right, speed? All that stuff is like it's a much more layered thing than just 3-point attempts. That's just kind of the tip of the iceberg, and then there's a lot of stuff because everything's connected, right, in the NBA. So it's like the 3-point attempt composition translates into closeout creation, translates into pull up three, like pick and roll. It's just like so many directions it could go into. So it's a central question though. So like to answer it, it's extremely important, right? Then from there you just answer more questions as you go. So yeah.
So when I watch Traore, and I'll let this run as I talk about it, I think like my biggest question is, and I had to go back and watch like the ANGT stuff, but he plays in such a structured situation with St. Quentin. Like very rarely did I feel like he manipulated the defense into an assist. It was a lot of it was like, oh, here's Spain pick and roll, or here's a cross screen. Like I know this guy's going to be open because this is how it's drawn up. And I think 100% that's valuable. Like even you see this is Spain pick and roll here. And that this type of like processing and being able to operate as a point guard is important. Like I think you need to understand how defenses react to sets, understanding like, hey, if this guy stays static but you see there's no fake here. You know what I mean? Like yes, he jumps, but like there's no manipulation by Nolan. It's just more so this guy makes a bad calculation because it's not like Nolan is looking at the shooter who's lifting anyways. Yeah. And so that's where I think his passing, while it's functional, I don't know how I feel about him like creating out of structure. Now, what I think helps him though is he is pretty fast. Like I think his first step is good. I think he has a functional handle. He gets downhill, finishes pretty well. Like Federico just says as well, like he's not bad defensively. Like he's pretty active. I know he was consensus top 5, especially after ANGT, and he didn't have the best start. He closed the season a lot better. I ended up higher on him than I expected. Like I have him higher than Saraf or like some of the other international prospects. Yeah. But when he measured at 6'4", 180, I was also like, man, that's really like that's small for 6'4", like in terms of weight. And so I wonder, like, what's his contact balance going to be like? How is he going to be able to, operate in a more physical setting? And I think the speed is enough. The shooting is definitely a question mark. What are your thoughts on him though?
Yeah, he's because he's interesting. Yeah, because he was putting up crazy numbers in the Dude Next Generation tournament. That's where he's getting a lot of hype, right? Before the draft cycle started. He's like you said, his first step is the first thing that stands out to me. It's like it's not like oh my insane, but it's good, right? It's like okay, he like consistently can get downhill and go from there. But kind of the feel I have on him is he's very like a north-south player, right? He
Yep.
very doesn't have a lot of east-west shake to his game. It's either like, okay, I'll hit the static catch and shoot three, or in pick and roll, I'm either gonna drive as fast as I can to get to the
Yeah.
rim.
He's
If I
not
can't
he's
get
not
there,
creative. He's like
yeah, exactly.
it's very much like routine. It's like predetermined. It's
Mechanical, right? It's like kind of, yeah,
and
robotic.
I think you need creativity as a guard. Not to cut you off, but I
Yeah,
feel that very emphatically because that was like my immediate takeaway. I'm like, he does what he's supposed to do well, but what does he do? And like the defense is forcing him into a different spot or like forcing him, like where he's not
yeah.
comfortable. I don't know. It's a
Yeah,
fair
like
question.
how does he avoid being predictable, right?
Yeah.
Like where defensively, like, he's gonna do this, and yeah, because the thing that came to mind when I first watched him was like he kind of reminds me a bit of Spencer Dinwiddie, where
Mm-hmm.
he really like focus a driving type guard, and then from there the mid-range pull-up game is like a kind of backup, and he shot pretty well on those, and catch and shoot threes was also solid, but it's just like yeah, where is, and even like when he drove, it's like a lot of it is one speed. Sometimes he would decelerate, but he didn't really show off really any craft or like gathers that are like, oh wow, impressive at the rim. And his touch, I think he shot like 70s from the free throw line, so his
Mm-hmm.
touch doesn't look really that natural. I think it might be okay, but it's not really like a really good touch. So when you put that all together, it's maybe with his speed, he could kind of be like a taller Dennis Schroeder. Yeah, I think he finished better at the rim, but his finishing, I feel like, is a lot predicated on just getting there first, right?
Mm-hmm.
Let me just get there first and then finish, right? A lot like Dennis Schroeder, because like I remember when we traded for Dennis Schroeder, people were like, oh, we finally have a rim pressure guard. Where like, yeah, we have a guard that can get into the lane a lot, but he's not really putting pressure on the rim. He's just running into the lane a lot because he's very fast, right? So that's kind of the feel I have on him. But I still feel like at 6'4" and he's that young and he could make like solid reads and spot up, catch and shoot threes, you have something functional there where in like the top 20, if you take him in the top 20, like, yeah, that'll be good. But as a lotto prospect, then it gets a bit more like, okay, what are the higher level outcomes you're envisioning for this, right? Because there's not a lot of shake, change of speeds. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, good first step, and he can hit catch and shoot three. So he might be a functional player, but it's more about what is the upside there, right? So that's kind of my feel on him. So I probably would have him if I do my board probably like in maybe like 15 to 20, that
Okay.
range. So just out of the lotto. Because yeah, I think I had like him better than Seraph though,
Yeah, I do too.
as a point guard. So yeah.
So Jorge asked about Chaz Lanier. I kind of see like Garrison Matthews with him. I think he's a
Mhm.
great shooter, but I don't really like. There's I don't know. I don't really have any strong opinions on him in general. Like he's a second round guy for me. What did you
Yeah,
think about him when you saw him?
I haven't watched much of him at
Mm-hmm.
all, but yeah, he just, yeah, wing, he can shoot. That's kind of the only impression I've ever had when the little I've watched him. So I'm gonna be honest, like I haven't watched much of him, so to
Yeah,
have a really good opinion.
I wasn't.
So
I wasn't like tapped in with Tennessee. Honestly, like they didn't really have any prospects
yeah, I
that
didn't
caught
watch
my
much
eye.
games at all.
Yeah, so I was like, I didn't watch him much. So, but you said something that intrigues me, and I think this is a good point to bring up with Jeremiah Fears. And so, like, there's the functional athleticism piece of the Traore evaluation, right? Like, we know that he
Hmm.
has a first step. We know that he's 6'4". We know that he can shoot off the catch. But there are craft questions, there are creativity questions, and just generally, when you think about a guard, do you feel like you're more um inclined to bet on craft or like the functional skills of being a guard? Because I think there is no more crafty guard than Jeremiah Fears, in my opinion. But then he's missing
Hmm.
a lot of the functional stuff, which is the actual finishing at the rim, the actual pull-up
Yeah,
three, the three-point consistency. And so do you think you'd
yeah,
be – I think it depends on the team as well. Like if Brooklyn takes Jeremiah Fears, I can understand it because it's like, okay, we're betting on what he could be, and we think his craft is really special. I do think he has legit special ability to get to the line, draw fouls, be
yeah.
crafty. But of course, he has all those other functional questions. So when you think about like a Fears versus a Traore, I don't actually think they're that different in terms
Hmm.
of skill set or what they could contribute. But it's more so, I feel like I know where I'm getting with Traore
Yeah.
because I see the at least baseline translation. for Fears, a lot of it is about the upside and about the usage and what he carried. And I'm
100%.
curious,
Yeah.
because I don't think there should be as big of a gap between them as there is. I'm curious how you feel about that.
Yeah, like for Fears, I kind of wavered a bit. Like when he first started playing well, I was like, "Oh, wow, this guy actually looks really impressive." And then I remember that same time around that time, I looked up all his pull-up shooting numbers, while going
Yeah.
back to like AZ Compass and pre. It's never been good. Like he's never been a good pull-up shooter or even like three-point shooter in general, right? And so I was like, okay, maybe this stuff is fake. So I got a little way lower on him. But I feel like nobody in this class has his handle. Like his handle probably is the most strongest, one of the most like distinct strongest skills in the draft for me. Like, like you when you say, okay, this guy's the best this guy's the best this, like the gap between Jeremiah's Fear's handle and the rest, I guess Harper's close. But he's just so like he can react. His handle, he can react to you moving and then cross you over. He has the quick twitch. He has the explosion. It's just that he's a player right now that can navigate the floor as like where he wants to, but when he gets to spots, what does he do? That's the question, right? It's like the potential is there. It's like, okay, because people have gotten to the league and got better at finishing. Like, okay, let's say he gets better at finishing. I think he shot 50% at the rim. Let's say he gets a bit better at finishing to become like just decent enough. Okay, and then let's say his pull-up mid-range, which he shot really well this year, continues to improve. Then you're starting to build a picture of a guy where you can really give the ball to, and the defense actually scared, right? He's gonna penetrate and like create space, right, for his shot. You know, like yeah, like these sort of handling sequences are like you're not seeing it much from anybody else in the draft. It's just that when he does really get to the rim, yeah, he's not gonna really finish through heavy contests, right? So that kind of limits his upside a bit. And then as a spot up player, he struggled this year as well. So let's say in a couple of years, people are like, yeah, I'm done with the Jeremy Fears experiments. It's not really working on ball. Like, what does he do now when he's relegated to more secondary, tertiary role, right? What does
Right.
his game look like, right? Then that's where the concerns start to pop up, where it's like, okay, like he's not really a crazy good decision maker, right? He's a decent passer, but like are people gonna argue people gonna respect the shot enough? In theory, he has the tools to like explode out of the closeouts and like get to the rim and like make passes, but he didn't really do that well this year. He's still young. That's where the questions start to pop up. But in terms of upside, yeah, like that's the difference between him and Traore for me. Like Traore, like you said, he's on like a pretty known commodity. He just does this stuff that was on tape. But the Fears' upside is just significantly more for me because he's just more dynamic, east-west off the dribble, can get to the rim, get to the line, right? So that's kind of where. So I think I was high on him. I went really low on him. Now I'm like back up to where in the lottery, like anywhere from like 8 to 12, 13. If you drafted him, like that makes perfect sense. You know, like you're just swinging on a potential on-ball creator in the class, right? Because after Harper, he's probably the next best guy, right, in the backcourt to create offense, like to reach those levels as a creator. That's kind of what I think. So I got a bit higher on him. Yeah, obviously the question is how does he scale down? Like let's say he doesn't reach any level as a like he doesn't reach that heights as an on-ball creator. How does he scale down and what's his game going to look like, right? And then if you still think his game's going to look good, then you're probably really high on him. Then you probably have top 5, right? But if you have big concerns, then that's when you drop him. So that's kind of what I think.
Yeah, I think seeing teams they're saying that New Orleans would trade up or Washington would trade up. I think that's crazy because honestly I don't think that he's going to. I can't imagine him going top 5. You know what I mean? Like I feel like right now I feel like top 5 is pretty well set. You know what I mean? It'd be Flag, Harper, I think VJ or Khan. Then it's probably VJ or Khan for Charlotte, and then it's Trey or
Ace maybe.
Probably. Like I can't see Utah going with another guard. I don't think that Charlotte would go with a guard. So it's like I think all that's smoke. But I wanted to point out this play too, because I mean there's no like intrinsic value or translation to like guys who show up in clutch. But I mean he had, and I think this is a testament to his space creation and his shot creation ability, because it's like down the stretch he could get a look. It may have not went in, but like consistently he was able to get to where he needed to be. And I think even this play where he floats this over Otego Owe, like this is why he has rim finishing issues though. Like he's not getting any Like he can't go into them, right, and create
Yeah.
the contact and knock them off. He can't go jump higher than them because he doesn't have that off
Mhm.
the floor verticality, and so he has to rely on like just getting this as high as possible. And and even then, like if that help defender's in a better position, this is probably getting blocked. But I think
Yeah.
it's when you watch when he's trying to get to the rim, you see why he shot so poorly in the half court. He shot 45.5% in the half court,
Yeah.
which is really, really bad. And when I had to go back and watch like the SEC games, because I'm like, man, he was like as bad as he was in the half court in general, like he was like awful in the SEC. And when
Mhm.
I watched a lot of it, it's the SEC was a tough conference. Like this is
Yeah.
especially
Really good.
defensively. Like he could get he was unable to get anything off against Auburn. Dylan Cardwell, Janai Broome, they were putting
Mhm.
him through hell. And I do think you have to account for the difficulty a little bit. But I think
Yeah.
and Federico has a good question, but like how well does free throw rate translate? And so from what I understand, I think it's one of the highest correlations to like star outcomes. I have to
Mhm.
find the actual source. Like there was a website that's developed by it might have been Todd Whitehead, but it was like
Mhm.
the star trajectory site. And he's basically like tracking these particular metrics that indicate whether someone's ready to take that leap. And it's usage, but free throw rate is one of those things because it's tied to usage, but it's also like your ability to generate easy points. And
Yeah.
I think that if you're a big and your free throw rate is really high and it's not self-created, then I'm more skeptical. But if you're a guard and you watch the way that Jeremiah was there to get people like off balance, out leverage them, draw contact, I think at least in his case in particular, it is very translatable. I think free throw
Yeah.
rate can be sort of like a not as easily translatable though. But so, what do you think about his particular free throw rate or free throw drawing ability? Do you think it translates? And in general, like how much stock do you
Yeah.
put into free throw rate?
Yeah, like I think his is like legit. Like you watch the games and he's getting fouled because he's getting to places way quicker than the opposition, right? And then they're out of position and their
Mm,
body's going into him, right? But it just the way I feel about it is a lot of times it tells me how much stress you're putting on the defense because the like defenders will only foul you if they feel like, oh, they're out of position or they have to, right? Most of the fouls, like obviously there's dumb fouls like, oh, why did I do that? Someone just reaches in. But a lot of the times it's like, okay, defender is in a compromised position and then he has to recover and then he ends up fouling, right? And the fact that you repeatedly put the defense into those uncomfortable positions, it tells you a story of like, okay, that then like he's actually putting defensive pressure. And then you look at the tape, you're like, okay, how is he actually putting on defensive pressure? And then fears is just like off the dribble, boom, he's gone. And then he gets to the rim or like he gets fouled in like someone reaching in and so on. So yeah, I feel like it's translatable, but yeah, you have to look at the type of player and what they're doing. So you can't just look at it like straight raw and be like, oh, high free throw rate means this. You got to look at how they're getting those free throws and if it's like replicable at the next level, right? But yeah, fears for sure. I think it's free throw rate is translatable. It's just that yeah, how does he become a better finisher at the rim? I think a lot of his stuff might be technique related, like the thing you described, right? Like if he positions his body better, if he like reps it out where he's like, okay, I'm gonna do this in this situation more, then maybe because a guy like in that situation, I've seen Jase in that situation, even though his rim volume's way lower, like really understand, like, okay, I'm gonna step through to this guy. I have this guy on my back. I have this much space to finish with my left hand, and then he finishes easily over the top. Like he's really aware of like how to like gather and get to the points on the floor and like how to like gather towards the rim, not like outside, right? And take a tough shot. So I think part of it is workable. But yeah, just to answer his question, Federico, I think it's translatable. But there's still some caveats, but you have to, yeah, I think it's definitely translatable.
So I want to ask you about Dylan Harper too, because at least for me, like it was like a Flag was the guy in this class, but I don't think Dylan
Hmm.
Harper is a bad consolation prize at all. And
Yeah.
I'm curious where you view him in like in terms of other guard prospects. Like I feel like I don't think he's above like Fultz maybe or
Hmm.
or even Lonzo because just like I think Lonzo was awesome as a prospect. But I'm curious
Yeah.
like what other guard prospects would you think like he'd be similar to in terms of where he's coming in the NBA as a prospect, not necessarily their outcome.
Yeah, like the interesting one to debate is him versus Scoot. I think
Mhm.
I would probably pre Portland Scoot, right? Because a lot of people soured on him now, even though I think he had an underrated year this year.
For sure.
Like pre-draft Scoot, like during the draft, I feel like I had to go higher. Like he was in 1B, like not convos, but like he was like the guy they're mentioning after 1B, right? And if you're like
Mhm.
around the 1B aura, you're kind of a special prospect there. So, but I would have him too far under Scoot. Faults, that was way back, but I think I had Faults, yeah, number one, and like yeah, he was one of the he was a special prospect in terms of his ability, skill off the dribble, and his athleticism. So I probably have him higher. So I probably have him that close, but directly under those guys, right? But I think he'd be better than like Fox, all the rest of these prospects, like that came after, um, like they're under like a tier below those guys. So yeah, I would say he's probably not on that tier, but just below.
Mhm.
And the main thing is the main question is how will his pull-up game, lack of pull-up game, lack of like mid-range counters affect his ceiling, right, as a creator. That is like the main question and why some people are lower, slightly lower on him than most. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel.
I think he does two things at like an all-time great level for a prospect. And
Hmm.
the first thing is like split the pick and roll. Like I feel like he
Hmm.
did this at least once a game. And I think this is like a testament to how tight his handle is and like being able to get through all that traffic and then explode and get to the rim. The other
Yeah.
thing I think he does like at a really great level, I think it's this clip. Hold on. Yeah, he switches sides of the floor on his drives like really well too. And I
Hmm.
love that he can sort of snake out of the pick and roll. So he starts on the right side of the floor here, and he's gonna go across the big's body to get to his back to his left hand and gather and finish over. And there were multiple moments. I can't remember the exact game. It might have been the Michigan game. Like he just is like he might even jump from the right side of the rim and finish with his left. And it's like
Hmm.
that level of body control and flexibility and the way his driving angles are, I think is really
Yeah.
special. Now, what I'm
Yeah.
curious about is like arguably, I think Flag going to Dallas and I think Harper going to San Antonio could be somewhat detrimental in terms of like their long-term outcomes. For
Hmm.
Flag, I'm looking at it from the perspective of like they've got so many forwards, they got so many wings. They don't have
Yeah.
Kyrie for the ball or for the initiation, and they're a really expensive roster. So like if
Yeah.
I'm Dallas, I would be trying to shed salary to like sign someone who can initiate, run the offense. But I mean, you've
Hmm.
got PJ Washington, Daniel Gafford, Najee Marshall, like they're really deep on the wing. And so I worry
Yeah.
if Cooper is going to get enough initiation reps because I think my example when I talked about the wings was like Jason Tatum was not
Hmm.
given those creation reps early on, and so it took him a long time to become that level of processor that he is now.
Yeah.
Dylan Harper, again, we talked about like with guards with the pull-up threes, but also processing the floor. I am worried about him being pigeonholed or shoehorned into an off-ball role playing off of Castle and Fox because I'm worried if he'll ever
Same.
get the chance to be like that dynamic on-ball creator we saw at Rutgers. And that's
Yeah.
why if I'm saying like personally, I think if San Antonio knew they were gonna get the second pick, there's no way they're trading for Fox because
Yeah.
it's not just that they're duplicative. And I am somewhat more skeptical of Fox versus like other like than maybe even you, but like I don't
Hmm.
view him as like a top tier initiator or creator. And I
Hmm.
also don't. I think I want a more dynamic passer next to Wemby. I want a more polished creator, and I
Yeah.
worry about his ability to reach that level when he's going to have to play off those guys. I know you said you
Hmm.
feel the same way. Do you think like I do think scaling down will help him in the beginning. I just hope they give him more like leeway over the
Yeah.
offense. But what do you think about that?
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. Like the moment San Antonio got second pick, the questions start off like obviously people are like Giannis trade, right? The moment it
Yeah.
happened, but yeah, now that doesn't seem as likely. But I feel 100% the same way. Like not only is like Fox gonna be taking the more of the like play types you would want to see him get reps under, especially in the
Mhm.
beginning of the year, and then you have Castle as well, who's not really a good shooter, right? So then it's like you have two guys that are not ideal fits next to Harper. Yeah, and yeah, the main thing is the reps. Like how, like, is he gonna really get those reps or be playing off the catch in the beginning, right? Like for example, because I always comp like loosely in terms of what they do and the lack of pull-up game and going to NBA is RJ Barrett and Harper, right?
Hmm.
I think Harper is like significantly better handler and much more like agile in like close spaces. But in terms of RJ got drafted to a situation in New York where he was just like a 3 and D spacer because they had no spacing for him, right? And then it took him a few years to actually get more of those reps. So it could be something similar to Harper, but I just feel like Harper's ceiling, he's a better prospect, right? In my mind, it's like, like why? Like I get because they already did a Fox trade, right? So they can't really trade him again or let him go. So that's kind of locked
Right.
in. So at the end of the day, and you're not really gonna pass out Harper. So yeah, this is more just from a Harper perspective. I think like his off the catch game probably would develop because shot decent off the catch, and I think he's actually efficient in spot up scenarios as well. So he might do well there. But if you're envisioning him as like the primary or like initiator next to Wemby, and that's like your 1-2 punch, then you have Fox kind of delaying or like sucking away the reps from him, then obviously, yeah, long term it's more concerning, right? But if they're really all in on Fox and Wemby being the combo, then they just have Harper cooking in the background. Then it's like, okay, for them it's good because they have like good prospects, but it's more about Harper development, like you're asking. So I'm definitely concerned from that perspective as well. I think Cooper, I'm less because I think that guy will just, they're just so, he's like, he could do everything on a basketball court. So like
Yep.
there's not really because Harper's more of a pick and roll guard, and if you're taking pick and roll reps from him, it's gonna be more detrimental. But Cooper is like an everything player, right? So
Yeah.
you're not gonna really take anything away from him. You'll find a way to contribute, right? So that's kind of what I think. I'm more concerned with Harper than Cooper, right?
Mm.
So
That makes sense. And I think that's why the Tatum comparisons ring so true for me. But I think like with the situation of going to Dallas, I
yeah,
think the Kawhi Leonard trajectory has become more realistic in my opinion. Where like Tatum he was contributing pretty soon, but he
yeah,
wasn't changing games like Kawhi was as a younger prospect. And I think that's what we'll see from Flag. Like I've been trying to tell people that
yeah,
because like people will ask me, they're like, I'm not really moved by Flag. I'm like, just wait. Like,
yeah.
I think his
Same.
rookie season, like
Yeah.
if when I think about him in terms of like historically, I think he doesn't have the long or like I guess the high end outcome of a Wemby, right? Just because he's not
Hmm.
7'4", he can dribble, but he's more complete than Wemby
Yeah.
was. No questions asked. Like
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Wemby was very raw. Still has some things to
Yeah.
work on. I think you have to go back to like Anthony Davis or
Hmm.
maybe Zion, but Zion's defense was just nowhere clear. I think you got to go back to AD to find a prospect. Like so, I'm so excited to see what he looks like
Yeah. It's gonna
for
be crazy,
for
man.
Dallas. It's gonna be a lot of
I
fun.
still can't believe they got the first pick, man.
It's some
Like
BS.
it's this thing is all a conspiracy, man. And the Lakers are selling the franchise. Yo, that's all I'm saying. Take a look. That's all I'm
So
saying.
Connor asked about Ryan Nemhard, and I have not watched a ton of him, but
Yeah.
just looking at the numbers alone, so what I'm showing right now is a graph made by Ryan Kaminsky. His ad is at Beyond the Arcade. This is from Cerebro
Hmm.
Sports. This is basically like their passing score among like the 2025 NBA eligible guys. Like
Yeah.
Nemhard is the best. He's the best passer in the class in terms of like the ability to actually create shots for guys.
Hmm.
And I think the big drawback when you look at his brother, I mean, obviously the size. I think he's 2 or 3 inches smaller than Andrew. I don't
Yeah.
think he's that strong, but he reminds me a lot of like Scottie Pippen Jr. It's kind of like what I immediately think of, and I think he could have a role like
Hmm.
that in the NBA. I think if you're a team that's a contender in the second round, he should be 30 to 40-ish on your board. I don't have him on my
Hmm.
board, but again, like I'll admit, I could be kind of like swayed by what the Hawks need. So that's why I'm doing this
Hmm.
guard episode because sometimes I need like a check in on like valuing guards because I just haven't looked at them that much to be honest. Because like I spend so much time with the
Yeah.
Hawks, but I think that
Yeah.
outside of like I like Javon Small a lot too from West Virginia, but I don't know if you have any particular thoughts about him.
So Nemhard, yeah, I haven't watched too much, but basically from what I've seen, he's like kind of a pure point guard type. Really, really good passer, like you're saying from this graph. But you have to question how many of those types are in the league. They're mostly backup, right? So I guess you're
Yeah.
drafting to be a backup. And I feel like, yeah, that would make sense in the 30, 40s. But that kind of archetype is slowly going away, Like it's kind of interesting. But he's At least because one of the guys, they're not the same player, but when we drafted that guy, what was his name? The short point guard who was at Kansas State. Oh, I forgot his name.
Oh,
Marquise
Marquise
Noel.
Noel. Yeah.
Yeah, Marquise Noel. He was like 5'9" or something. So obviously, I think Nemhard's like above 6 foot, but he was like actually like crazy athlete for his size. Not crazy, but
Yeah.
like really good athlete for his size. But he was just 5'9", and most of his shooting was off the dribble, pull up rather than off the catch. So then you translate that, and you just have a really good G League, Summer League player because you don't have a guy who can really scale down and he's getting it killed on defense, right? Nemhard is probably going to be better, like, because he's his size and so on. But like a lot of these pure point guard types, that's the first thing that comes to my head now. It's like, okay, how valuable is this if your primary skill is just running the offense, making good passes, like how valuable is that in today's NBA? You know, as a backup, it might be still very valuable, but as a starter, I don't think you're drafting him for a starter, so that's probably a relevant question. But yeah, that's kind of
Mhm.
what I think of him.
Yeah.
Really
So
like him.
that's why I think I would look at someone like that's why Cam Jones is higher on my board, right? Like Cam Jones is
Yeah,
someone
I'm
who
right there.
like again, we talked a lot about context. So like, what does he do if he doesn't have the ball in his hands? We saw him off the ball most of his years at Marquette. This year, he scales up, was one of the most productive players in the class. You see where he ranks here in terms of passing and scoring via Cerebro, like pretty much questionable territory. Like it's all the rest of these guys are guys like Javon Small and Nate Clifford who did a lot for their teams. And then Cooper Flagg, Walter Clayton Jr. Like these are like primary creator sort of like territory. And so
Yeah.
if I'm a team like Boston, I'm taking a look at Cam
Yeah.
Jones. If I'm LA, I'm looking at Cam Jones. Um, if we're talking about like senior guards, like Walter Clayton Jr., Cam Jones, Javon Small, like do you have any like particular opinions on those guys? I would go Walter Clayton probably, but I think
Yeah.
I like Javon Small a lot too. But I probably go Walter Clayton, Cam Jones, Javon Small. I'm curious on how you
Same.
feel though.
I think Javon Small, I'm gonna say I haven't watched much of, right? So I'll say that first.
Oh,
But
you gotta
Walter
tap in.
Clayton, yeah, I gotta watch him. I'm gonna watch him soon. Walter Clayton and Cam Jones. For Cam Jones, I was just listing like the stats for a bunch of these guards. He had a 38% assist percentage. I was like,
Mhm.
whoa, I did not expect that, right? Because like he was like a shooter, right? Like his reputation before this year. And
Yep.
I didn't know he could really scale up like that. So I was like, wow. And like I just like the way he moves on the court. He has a low free throw rate, which is like okay, but you're drafting to be like more of a smaller guard. So, but Walter Clayton, like all of his stats and everything, other than like an okay free throw rate, it's like spectacular, like really good. Like the only really question you have on him is like okay, maybe his age and so on. But like all and like he can run pick and roll, hit spot ups. His jumper is so quick. Like he could transition to it off the dribble like instantly.
Mhm.
So that's why I would have it number one, right? And then Small, yeah, I gotta tap in more. But I've heard some good things about him. Like a lot of people I know rate him really well. So but yeah, I would consider taking Walter in like top, like even back in the lottery, to be honest. Like
Mhm.
if you took Walter Clayton back in the lottery, I wouldn't blame you, right? I think he's like a top 20 lock for me. But I was just surprised how good his profile is, and then the tape matches it. He's like a pretty good athlete, decent athlete for his size, crazy shooter, and he's like a decent passer as well. So like all that, like he's basically like in the school of the next like Van Vliet Pritchard. That's what you hope for,
Yep.
you know,
Yep.
if you
Yep.
draft him. So I think he can reach that. So yeah, I'm decently high on him. I like him a lot.
Yeah, Javon Small's a lot of fun to watch. Like he does a lot of things athletically you wouldn't expect with this frame. He's a good shooter, good decision maker. Walter
How
Clayton
tall
was
is he?
someone. He is six. Hold
Looks
on,
like
I pulled
six
it up.
four ish, right?
He
Six
measured
four.
at 6'1", but
Oh, okay. The tape
yeah,
lied to me.
but
Okay,
like he plays bigger. Like one of those clips, like he's
he
bumping
looks
guys off
bigger.
their spots. He's also a lot more explosive than most guys who are 6'1". Like he has some guys he caught like he put body like he caught a body on. But I think, and I saw this pointed out by it might have been like MCF draft or I can't remember who exactly was talking about. But like Walter Clayton's
Mhm.
balance is ridiculous. You're talking about his shooting
That's
ability.
true.
Like he'll be running full speed to his right, but he
Yeah,
has enough strength in his core to completely align his body to
yeah.
elevate and knock down shots. And that is
It's a great point.
a very, very special trait that like that's something I see with Trey Johnson, right? Where it's like
Hmm.
the ability to keep your body aligned while running to one direction. And then of course there's the on ball stuff too. And what I really like about Walter as well is that he played a lot off of his bigs. And so he consistently running off handoffs for Alex Condon or Tyler Howe. But then he has like the on ball stuff too, where like he can fire from any position, right? Like this is the type of shot that like very few NBA guys are even taking this consistently, right?
100%.
So he fires that after having his back to the basket, and then you see how little space he needs. Like there's not even really a load up here, and he has the core strength and the lower body strength to fire it up, and it looks great every single time. He is, unfortunately, I feel like people may think he may be overvalued because of what he did in the tournament. But to be honest, he should have been higher the entirety of the cycle. Like
exactly,
I think
people are just sleeping on him. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Like I was like, man, this dude is top 30. He's top 30. This is a first round talent. Like I was saying that in January, and it was just it was apparent to me when I watched Florida. Like as good as they were as a team, he was their guy, and he was the biggest reason why they were so dominant. And I agree entirely with the Fred VanVleet, Peyton Pritchard stuff. Like even if like I think Fred is probably the higher end outcome because I think the one thing that Fred does really well is minimize turnovers, great pull up shooter, and then he's a competitive and gritty defender, which gives him more utility than someone like Peyton Pritchard. But Peyton Pritchard is like inarguably the better offensive player. And so if you're talking about someone who can like at least be neutral defensively, but have the volume and the shot versatility of Peyton Pritchard, that's someone I'm taking top 20 easily. I think before I even put my board up for the first time, I might need to reevaluate when I'm taking him as I'm talking about it because I'm just like, I think the 3-point volume alone.
Talk about him, you're like, wait. Like he sounds like a lotto guard when you talk about it. It's just like obviously, if he was like obviously sophomore, even junior, I feel like people wouldn't hesitate to put him. But obviously, the fact that he's senior, it gives you pause. But yeah, like I think top 20 for sure. It's just a question like, okay, can he sneak into a back end lottery? You know, that's kind of what I'm thinking. But yeah, he's like very like extremely good. Yeah, I was very impressed by him.
Yeah, he's 22. So it is a question mark for sure. It's not an open shut close or an open and shut case for him. But like I think I'm willing to bet on like the shot creation. Federico's talking about Orlando. I don't know if he'll fall to Orlando at this point. Like, would they have
Orlando's
to move up? What? They're 25 now. They're 26.
Yeah, he might not fall. I have a feeling he'll go like between 15 and 20. That's my feel. In draft night. Yeah, if he gets to if Orlando got him, that would be sick. Yeah, imagine having him. They have Bane now. That would be super sick. Yeah, so a lot of those teams in that range, I feel like someone's gonna get a good, like really good player. You know, high value if they draft him.
You said 15 to 20. So out of OKC, Memphis, Minnesota, Washington, Brooklyn, and Miami, who do you think would take him?
I think he's the type of player Miami would take, I think. Yeah, if I took him at 20, I wouldn't be surprised. Brooklyn, I'm not sure if they would take him. What's their he just seems like a Miami type pick. I don't know why. I just saw vibes. So I wouldn't be surprised if you got to 20. Washington, they might value youth for 18 still. And try to go for someone like if Sorber's there, I can see them still going for Sorber or something, you know, that sort of range. 16, you know, the Grizzlies have shown to draft seniors high, right? They don't really care. So if they have, I think they have a lot of analytics guys there. So if they're like, yo, this guy's like popping off in our models, we're gonna take him at 16. I feel like they're the type to do as well. So probably like Grizz, Miami. Wolves just drafted Dillingham, right? I don't know if they have the appetite to draft another smaller guard.
Yeah,
and they gave up a lot for Dillingham.
They did.
So.
They gave a bunch of future firsts. I don't know if he's shown me enough to where, and I'm saying this as someone who's very high on him. I don't know if he's shown me enough for me to say I don't want to take another like swing at a guard. But I also just feel like their biggest need, man, it's tough. It's tough because it's like I really think they need another center for to at least prepare for the post Gobert era. But I mean, it's pretty clear, like from the playoffs, that Ant was overextended as a creator, and Mike Conley is far too old.
Yeah, Mike Conley's. Yeah, the idea, I feel like they probably hope Dillingham can just take Conley's place, right? That's the idea. But yeah, like I said, I wouldn't hesitate to draft anybody over Dillingham. But the fact they give a lot of picks, I feel like they wouldn't, because they're like they're gonna get questioned, like, oh, well, why'd you draft all anyways? But yeah, like for them it's difficult, yeah, because they have Ant. Jaden McDaniels can like create here and there, but not like a guy you consistently bank on. So it's really like just Ant and like, because ideally if they got KD, right, that would have been like their way to trying to raise their ceiling. But it's actually difficult the position they're in now. Oh, they got I forgot to have Randall. Randall actually played well, so that's I actually completely forgot about him. So I'm not sure what move they make, to be honest. So yeah, I'm not sure. Yeah, but they wouldn't seem like the type of team to draft Clayton. They might just go for it because they drafted Minot and they drafted Leonard Miller, and they
Yeah,
just been cooking in the G League, right?
yeah,
So maybe they just like length, I guess. So we'll see. We'll see what they draft though. They're in an
yeah.
interesting situation.
Tim Connolly is definitely a length guy for sure, and so
Yeah.
that's why I think Sorber is such like a projectable guy for them. But I do wonder, like, Walter could be that guy. Like, like, I think he is that level shooter. Now, is he good
Yeah.
enough on the ball to like relieve Ant's initiation pressure? I think they still have to split it. Like, he's not someone that like
Yeah.
if you could take prime, if you took prime Fred VanVleet and you put him on the Timberwolves, that's a really great fit long term. I think
Yeah.
that's the ideal guard for Ant as someone who like
That's
could
true.
trade on and off, but because he's such a good shooter, you know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
if that's what you think Walter could be,
Hmm.
it could make sense. Federico was talking about the connected playmaking with Jase though, and I think that's a good point as well. Like you saw it with the Keel Alexander Walker and Dante, they were not able to consistently make those decisions as those ball handlers.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if anyone has the
Jace is
size, it'd be
interesting.
Minnesota though.
Yeah, like Jace would be very interesting there. I feel like that's a good fit for him. But like he in terms of decision making, he just doesn't make mistakes. He's not a creative passer. He's not a like second, third level read guy, but he just doesn't make the wrong read most like at a higher rate than most guys. That's why his turnover percentage is so low, right? So when you're in a
Yeah,
situation like that where like Ant's getting doubled and like so on, if you have a guy who can hit spot up threes at a good rate and then really attack closeouts and be a real threat to finish, right? And not just like a guy who's just gonna toss up some random stuff, right, against the NBA contest. Yeah, I feel like he'd be really good fit. If they got him at like whatever they're at 16 or so on, now I'd be really, really happy if I was a Wolves fan, you know. Yeah, that's actually perfect. I completely forgot they're in that range, so actually a perfect fit. Yeah, I want him to go to
Gabriel
Bulls now.
Gabriel's talking about the Keel Alexander Walker. A lot of Wolves fans have complained about him to
Future
me,
Hawk.
and he would fit into the like we have enough cap space for it, but from what I can understand, like a lot of Wolves fans feel like he's not built for the playoffs, and
Yeah.
that's the problem because like again, and I do think they were asking too much of him. Like, hey, we need you to
Yes. Yeah.
be the guy who's going to be the secondary ball handler and create and run the offense. It's like it's not really his
Yeah.
game. Like he's a complimentary guy, and I think some guys' faults aren't due to like who they are or what they are. It's more so what the team is asking of them. And so, from the Hawks'
Yeah.
perspective, we've been asking guys like V. Krejci to guard threes and fours. We've been asking George Niang to close at the four. We've been overextending guys for years. And so, having someone like Nikhil be that off-ball guard playing off of Dyson, I think makes more sense for the Hawks than it does like for Minnesota, where they're asking more of him. But I wouldn't want to give him too much just because like I do think he has limitations, and I value the Wolves fans I've talked to because they gave me that candid opinion. But I do want to ask you, do you have any like other guards in general that like you'd like to touch on? Because I mean, for me, I feel like we
Yeah.
talked about everyone except Zion James is someone that I feel like has some real NBA value. I think he's like he wasn't the best creator or the best like decision maker, but built like an ox. I think he has like some dunker spot, like short roll playmaking stuff. I think he was great on the glass. I think he could be like a Davion Mitchell type of guy, or like like who's going to harass guys defensively and then give you some rebounding and give you some defensive playmaking. Do you have anyone else like? I know we didn't talk about Seraph either, so if you have any thoughts on that, because he has been playing well.
Yeah, he has, and I think he dropped like 20 against Bayern today.
Yeah,
Like, but I want to watch him. Like, I'm like, okay, what's the sell? Like, what is the special ingredient here? Prospects don't necessarily need to have that, but I feel like for him, it's just like he's okay in most areas, right? And then he has like size. So I haven't watched as much as I wanted to, right? And I'll probably get more to him later. But like I never really came away wowed in much
yeah,
aspects, right? I was just like, okay, he's a decent, solid passer. He can like pull up from mid range. Like he has okay touch. He can handle the ball. Yeah, like there, like that's actually nice. But like, I never really came away with like, oh, okay, like consistently wowed, right? That's actually a really nice pass though. I'm not gonna lie.
He has some where it's like, if
Yeah,
like the velocity on that, the placement, the timing, that's special.
yeah.
But when I was watching him against I forget who their semifinals opponent was, but he did
Mhm.
not he didn't stand out to me either. I've got to catch some
Yeah.
more of these games though. Like this is the real from the game today or yesterday. But
Hmm.
I don't know. There's a big guard fat. I don't think he's immune to it. He could do more
Yeah.
off the dribble than like some other guys, but I don't think like he's. I don't know. I didn't like when he was getting to the rim. He has some turnover issues as well. I think it's very similar to
Yeah.
Kasparas, right? Like if he has at least two
Yeah.
guard size, so like he could fall back on that if the on ball stuff doesn't work. But
Yeah.
I just view him several tiers below Kasparas, and I think you probably view him the same way.
Yeah, like he's just probably like the last of the significant guards in the first round. Like
Mm.
I would take right, but I gotta watch more. Maybe I'll get slightly higher, but I don't feel like I'll be too high on him even after that. But one of the guys, I guess two guys, would you consider VJ a guard or a wing?
I would say
Because
I
he's
don't
kind of
know.
an in-betweener right now.
I have him as a combo, but I think the handle
Hmm.
kind of makes me think that he'll be more of a wing. It's like it's not
Yeah,
like
same.
I don't really see him as an initiator, so I think I call him a wing.
Yeah, like for him, yeah, if you rate him as more of like a pure guard, I feel like his value goes down because his handles rough and his finishing is really bad right now. Like he just runs at the rim, jumps, and just like that's pretty much his whole plan right now, right? And
Yeah.
his touch is like okay, but it's not really that special, right? But
Mhm.
everything else, like defensive playmaking wise, he's actually a solid passer more than you expect. Crazy athlete. I feel like he'll find a way to actually be an impact player. So that's why I probably still have him around 3, 4. But Khan as well. So Khan is a guy, probably my next video I'm gonna do on him, the
Mm.
one after Jace. And I feel like I'll be pretty high on him. The only thing is like one question is he doesn't jump at all, right? So and a lot of his creation is like set strength based because he's like really wide and he has like a thick barreled chest, right? So he'll drive and his handle is actually impressive for the type of player he is, right?
Mhm.
So he'll drive and he's so comfortable just dribbling in the middle of the floor, keeping his dribble alive. Then he'll bump guys and just like
Yep.
step through and finish, right? So the question I have is like, okay, when you bumps guys at the next level, the windows are going to be smaller because guys are stronger, guys are bigger, longer, right? So if he bums guys trying to get to the rim and finish the way he did in college, will he just get blocked way more and will he struggle, right? It's just kind of the athletic jump. How will it affect his play style? That's the kind of thing I'm thinking about. But yeah, that type of strength creation, handle, and then being a shooter like that is kind of a combo. I really like that combo a lot. So I think I'll probably have him like top 6 for sure. I don't see him below that. It's just a question of is he going to be like 4, 5, or 6. But my next video, I'll dive more deep into him. But yeah, I like him a lot. I think I like him more than Trey, uh, just a little bit. So I'll probably have Trey just like one spot or two spots behind him. But those are kind of the guys I had on my list. I was like Dylan Harper, VJ, Fears, Trey, Kasparas, Nolan, Seraph, Jace, and Cam Jones. Those are kind of all the significant first round, early second, I guess, prospects. So after that, you're diving deep into the barrel bin. You're just pulling out some Hunter Salas. What about Hunter Salas?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like so it gets deeper later. But yeah, those are kind of the cards I feel like. So it's kind of a mix. The top end you have Harper obviously, and then it's a lot of question marks. But then you have guys you're a bit more certain on in like Khan and Trey because their skills are so scalable, right? And you have VJ who does a lot, crazy athlete, still question mark. And then you have a lot of these flawed creators, I would say, right? After that, so it's an interesting bunch, but yeah, it's not like you really have one really star level prospect you would consider with Harper, right? Then
Yeah.
everyone else is kind of just like hope you're hoping way more, right? So yeah, it's more of a bigger forward and bigs class, I feel like,
Mhm.
So
That's what I feel too. And Federico asked if you said his ceiling was RJ Barrett. I think you just said like it kind of reminded you of him, right?
yeah, not a ceiling. Like yeah, in terms of outcome wise, maybe that's his like mid to lower end, right? His ceiling would be someone like no, it wouldn't be like it would be someone like I guess I don't know. I don't know. It's hard to pin on it because see, this is the problem with comps, right? Like you might have pieces of a different player, but not the whole thing. But RJ is definitely not a ceiling. I think he's a better prospect for sure, and his ceiling is way higher than that. But like if the pull-up twos and all that stuff doesn't work out, you could see him being the same type of player as RJ in his middle to lower end outcome. Um, but yeah, like his passing's way better, his handle's way tighter, he's more agile. So it was kind of just a loose comp of guys who are like rim reliant that don't really pull up, right? And
Mm.
at that size, and it's kind of like RJ, who's like the closest, right? But outcome wise, yeah, he that's yeah, it's definitely if he was RJ was his top level outcome, he wouldn't be locked into, right? Um, you're hoping of like an actual legit all-star, maybe third team all NBA right, type of point guard out of him. So, yeah, so that's pretty much Harper. I think yeah, that's most of the list covered.
I had Tyreek Evans as one of his higher end comps, like
Oh, that's a
prime
good one,
Tyreek
man.
Evans. It's like
That's a really good one.
that's where I feel like he could be like, obviously he didn't have the best career, but when he was in his prime, like that was a really great player, like a fringe all-star. And I think that Dylan has a
Yeah.
level above. I think I had one more thing for you, but I can't exactly remember it. So I definitely appreciate you taking the time, my man. Please let the folks know where to watch your excellent Jase Richardson video and all the other things you got planned.
Yeah, you can check me out YouTube channel called Taco Takes. Yeah, we'll probably link it here. You can go directly there. I just uploaded a Jase Richardson video. I dive deep on his high school to Michigan State, all his strengths and weaknesses, and then kind of go into my basketball philosophy stuff and where I rate him, right? So if you're interested in that, check it out. And then I have a VJ and Dare Queen, similar types of videos already up. And hopefully I'll get to con next. Before that, I probably should get a board out before Thursday or whatever the draft is. So I'll try to get that out. But yeah, Taco Takes YouTube channel. Check me out.
Sounds good. Definitely go and check them out. I'm working on a website to post my board, and so I'm pretty close to finishing, which
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out like just the visuals right now. So I'm really excited to share that with y'all. It has some pretty interesting stuff on there, and then I'll probably add to it as the draft comes up to it. That's just I want to get out the first version, and then I'll probably do like once I get that out, I'll probably do like either a stream or a video where I talk about like my philosophy. I think it's important to talk about like why you place guys, like what you value.
100%, yeah.
And then I've got a video that I'll try to get out before the draft as well, like about playoff lessons that are informing the draft. It's kind of like things that we need to take away from these playoffs. And I've got like about 10 big takeaways. So y'all keep a lookout for that. Appreciate everyone who's in the stream. Yeah, keep locked in on the Hawks rumor, man. We're gonna have plenty of stuff. Lock in on Taco Takes. You'll be very informed about this draft coming up. Again, appreciate you all for joining. We'll see you in the next one.